Well, this was inevitable. The Pittsburgh Penguins have been officially eliminated from the playoffs. For the first time since 2006, this team will not participate in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The same Stanley Cup playoffs that are currently happening. What? I'm not late. You're just early. To put in perspective how long it's been, the Winnipeg Jets were the Atlanta Thrashers. The most subscribed YouTube channel had like 1,000 subs, and Minecraft wasn't a thing. It was a dark time. At the time, it was the longest active playoff streak in all 4 North American sports, and just like The Undertaker at WrestleMania 30, the streak is over. I know most hockey fans are busy dunking on this team, which I'm not gonna stop you, but you gotta admit, it's kinda weird not having them in the playoffs. Hell, I'm admitting it right now. I'm currently recording this during the playoffs, and it feels weird not having the Penguins here. Like, where the fuck are ya? Like Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, these guys and like a bunch of other Penguins players have been around in this playoff dance since like a decade and a half ago. And then suddenly, poof, they're gone. They've taken their paycheck. They've left early and now they're on a plane ride to, I don't know, Antarctica or the Arctic or whichever one has penguins. And yeah, we may not like them, but we've still gotta acknowledge their accomplishments. Like, for example, continuing their dominance of the Washington Capitals, breaking the Ottawa Senators with 1 goal, and oh yeah, something about 3 Stanley Cups, but who gives a shit about that? They were having plenty of success, and everything was going nice and peaches for them. And then Jim Rutherford decided to start making some questionable decisions. One of these being signing Jack Johnson to a 5-year, $16.25 million deal. Which, I mean, in his defense, I get where he was coming from. Jack Johnson did win a Stanley Cup a few years later, so who knows, maybe he could have helped them win another one. But he didn't. In fact, his entire time with the Penguins was a dire tire fire that was set on fire with a pair of pliers. Only 2 years into this contract, the Penguins realized, no, this was a mistake, and bought him out. This was only one of many signings in Rutherford's twilight that the Pens would go on to regret. In January of 2021, Jim Rutherford would resign because of personal reasons, and in to take his place as GM of the Penguins would be Ron Hextall. From here, Hextall would reverse the mistakes made by Rutherford to quick success, turning the Penguins back into a Stanley Cup winning team, and I'm just kidding, he made everything worse. He brings plentiful of gifts to the city, such as Jeff Carter, who did pretty well after a trade from LA. So they decide to keep him around for a couple more years and are forced to watch him turn to dog shit faster than you can say, so they decide to keep him around for a couple more years and are forced to watch him turn to dog shit. Alongside him, Hextall also gives to you Kasperi Kapanen. Last season, Kapanen didn't really do all that well, so naturally he was punished with the reward of a 2-year extension. Hextall's reasoning for this was that he believed Kapanen could turn it around and revert back to last season's form. He did not do that, and thus 43 games later and a few healthy scratches later, he was sent down to the land of waivers. Oh hey, I just remembered, the Seattle Kraken made it to their first ever postseason and won their first ever playoff game. I wonder how some of the players on the Kraken are doing. Let me find out real quick. This Jared McCann guy sure scored a lot of goals. Off-season time, 2022, Hextall has his eyes set on this one guy, Jeff Petrie. This guy will surely be a great addition to the Penguins roster. I mean, his last name is only a letter off from being Petra. It was practically destiny. So Ronnie Boy got out his magical wand and bippity-ben, bippity-bab, Petrie to the Pens, Matheson to the Habs. And since then, Petrie has been, well, he hasn't been awful. He's just been kinda there. But you know what? Even though he's just, existing, this trade was not a giant mistake of giant mistakable proportions. So here's a trade that was. It's the final day of February, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are in Nashville to take on the Nashville Predators. I assume during the game, one of the players on the Preds named Mikhail Backlund caught the eye of one Mr. Heckers. So the very next day, the two teams have a deal that sends Granlund on his way to Pittsburgh. And then, he becomes a force to be reckoned with immediately. He becomes the very beast that the Penguins have needed the entire season. Soon, every goaltender would learn to fear this man. For in the 21 games that he played with the Penguins, repeat, only 21 games with the Pittsburgh Penguins, he was only on the ice with the Pittsburgh Penguins for 21 games, and in those 21 games, he scored a staggering, unprecedented, borderline incomprehensible 1 goal and 4 assists. This is one of the most game-changing trades of all time. You know, between him and Jeff Petragurin and Jeff Carter and Kasperi Kapanen, I'm starting to think this Ron Hextall guy isn't good at this whole GM thing. And it's not just me. During a game against the Oilers, Pens fans were very vocal about how they felt about him.
McDavid did a spinorama move that, they were talking they would be ready to go tonight. They weren't happy with the way they played in Philly. This is forced.
Okay, look, yeah, Hextall's tenure, it's been kind of a disaster, but look, alright, it's fine. It's all fine. Because despite all of this, the Penguins were still in the playoff hunt for the entire season. And I don't mean like they were kinda technically in the hunt, but also not really like the Capitals were. No, I mean the Penguins throughout the entire season looked like they were gonna be playing more than 82 games again. Sure, they didn't look like what they used to, and they were probably just gonna get their asses kicked by the Bruins or Hurricanes if they made it in, but if they made it in, they could pretend they were still cup contenders. They were right there in the battle for a wild card spot with the Islanders, Panthers, and Sabres, and for once, being in the same position as the Sabres was not a bad thing. Things are looking bright for the Pens. Not only do they have 2 games left to play, unlike the first 2 who only have 1, but they're also facing 2 teams that suck ass and are at this point just hoping to increase their odds of getting a Connor that's really good at hockey. No, a different Connor. If they win one of those games, their chances of winning are higher, but they would have to rely on the Islanders losing to the Canadiens for them to make it in. If they win both games, the Islanders game doesn't matter. The Pens have already punched their ticket and clenched their butt cheeks. They controlled their own destiny. They alone had the power to decide if they were in the playoffs or not, and they lost to the Blackhawks. Of all the teams to have your playoff hopes crushed by, it was the fucking Blackhawks. They deserved to miss the playoffs after such an embarrassment. And they did. Yep, the Islanders won that game, officially eliminating the Penguins and ending their 16-year playoff streak. The longest active streak in North American sports ended because the Penguins couldn't beat this team. They didn't even have Patrick Kane. That's hilarious unless you're a Pens fan, in which case it's pretty melancholy. The master has become the mastered. The overpowered has become the overpowered, and now all the Penguins can do is try to make this situation a little better. By listening to the fans and firing Hextall, they're off to a good start. But that's just that, a start. Whatever they do from this point on, I don't think it's going to be enough to turn it around and get them in the playoffs again next year. Considering the fact that Crosby and Malkin and all those other guys are aging and their prospect pool is drier than the Sahara Desert, I think it's going to be a tough couple years for them. I don't know, maybe they get a really good player in the draft, or they trade for a really good player, or they just don't do anything and they end up with a wild card slot next year anyway. But honestly, I don't see any of that happening. I think this team is fucked for at least 3 years, maybe more, and you know what? Good riddance, Rip Bozo. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Thank you to global warming for ending the Penguins and killing them off. Goodbye.